Okay, good afternoon. We are here again for another FPL last resort, and of course, good timing. Thursday afternoon / almost evening to kind of work out your dilemmas, and we have a cracking lineup here to work out the hot topics this week. So we got our old friend, FPL Mikey. Mikey, do you want to just give us a little bit of an introduction? Tell us, I don't know. You can tell us anything you like about yourself, but your old friend, an old friend to us.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on today. I've been playing FPL for a while now. I think probably the same amount of time as Danny has, really. And I never intended to take it seriously, and here I am on a podcast. So here we go.
Absolutely. We don't intend to take it seriously, and we are doing a podcast. So it tells you everything you need to know about the level of professionalism or unprofessionalism that we have here. Ignore doorbell in the background, by the way. That is the level of professionalism that we have here. But we also have in the studio this evening Sally Suboptimal. So how are you, Sally? Sorry, I meant Danny. Sorry, go ahead.
Suboptimal Sally. I am very suboptimal Sally this week. Thanks for that, mate. Thanks for the reminder. I'm good. Good, thanks. We had another pretty decent week in FPL last week, I think. I feel like saying because we never talk about obviously rank in our previous weeks, but I should also say to the viewers that Rich, inspired by our good friend Ivan, doesn't actually ever look at his rank. I don't think you've ever actually said this on the pod. So just in case people are interested to know, Rich doesn't follow his rank. He doesn't look where he is. He doesn't have any idea where he's ranked, despite being in loads of mini leagues and group chats and people sharing screenshots. And he manages to sort of escape it, don't you?
It's hard work, and it's through a mixture of brain strength and massive mental fragility all at the same time that I dodge, competitive rank scenarios and so on. But yeah, no, it works for me, but it's quite difficult to avoid. I think, Mikey, you've been in a situation like this before as well, haven't you? Tried to do it.
I'm still doing it actually, so I do try to avoid it. Yeah, but I find that it improves my decision making. I'm being honest with you, to avoid it, because otherwise you constantly fluctuate between I've got a red arrow, I've got to chase rank, and it's not good for you.
No, to be honest with you, the biggest problem are the sheer number of apps, etc., that we use now. So to take, for example, I'm not criticizing it because it's very good, but the Fantasy Football Scout app, for example, where there's team plan, immediately you switch it on, your rank is there. The same as the FPL website. So very, very difficult. But yeah, I do recommend it for certain types of management. Basically, if you don't want that to interfere with your process, certainly in the first 30 odd weeks of the season, I find it doesn't really provide any positivity into my thought process, so I kind of ignore it. But that's just me, and that probably will annoy viewers over time, that I have no idea what's going on. I gather it's going reasonably well recently, to be fair, but that might be because of
I feel like it can work both ways, because sometimes I watch people from the outside, and I'm not saying this has happened necessarily in recent weeks or anything like that, but sometimes I'll watch people who do similar and they're particularly annoyed about a week or a score, and I feel like saying, you've had a bloody good week, your week's been okay compared to most, or sometimes it works both ways, that you kind of think that you're doing worse than you are. It's an interesting one with rank, but you're very strict in a few ways, aren't you, Rich? Because again, we'll talk about FPL all the way through the week, and I kind of envy your approach to this a lot, really. I choose between either like watching the football all day on a Saturday, or not even necessarily watching it, but following the scores live as they're happening and just getting that kind of buzz. Whereas you, which is usually not enjoyable, it usually ruins my weekend. Whereas you, every single Saturday, as soon as that deadline passes and the SOAG, the SKLW deadline passes, and you've done all your managerial stuff, you just phone off, disappear from the planet. If I text Richie, I won't reply. I won't hear back until after match of the day or something like that, because he just goes off and enjoys his day and lives a happy life like we all should, and goes to the theatre and eats nice food at restaurants. And you're very strict with yourself, aren't you? It's very good.
I had no idea we were going to talk about this, which is the level of preparation that we do on this pod. But that is the way I do things. I think the other thing, by the way, and this will sound completely uncool to anyone in the FPL community who takes it even more seriously, perhaps, than we do, or a similar level. But okay, I'm fine with this, but I don't think it's fair to let it dominate every single day of my week. I mean, I will think about it every day. Obviously, we all do. We're weird and nerdy and all the rest of it. But I have a wife who demands attention, and Saturday is a day that I'm quite happy to give her a minimum, really. But yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, personally, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I'm fine with watching the games and it going wrong. I can accept it. What I don't like is scores flashing up, the goal scorers flashing up, like checking the BBC, checking, all of those kind of things. That ruins my day. For some reason, watching the games doesn't bother me because you can
Saturday at 3 p.m.
Yeah,
that
you can put it in
following
context.
the scores, and you just it's even if it's going well, it's still like stressful. So
could be better. Yeah, you're never happy. You're only ever content. You're only ever content. But basically, if you have a great week, you're kind of content, and it means that you can just be normal and talk to people and be friendly with your girlfriend and your partner and your whatever else. But I need to do that more often. I've never ever done a match of the day challenge in my life. I've never not known and just looked at the full time score ever. And like you say, Richie, I should, because you can contextualize it a bit more. You can be hit with the bad at the same time as the good, hopefully. But yeah, I'm still at the point of kind of soaking it all in live and letting it ruin my weekend.
Do you know what? Before we move on from this, oh, sorry, Mikey.
Game week 38 stream that.
Yeah. Before we move on from this, I actually went through to Monday morning this week.
Did you? Yeah, wow.
I have no idea what happened until Monday morning, and even then, I think I went for a jog first. So yeah, I watched both match of the days back to back because I have a week off this week. Sort of 10 a.m. through to noon. I just watched both back to back and got it all in one big hit. So yeah, that was my approach this week.
I would have gone for the run after, just either because I would have been energized by feeling great about my team, or just to get rid of all the anger. But other than that, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I will do a little bit of talking us through what we're going to look at today. I actually had the wrong screen on to start with, so forgive me, punters. But I'm going to start off in a few minutes' time with budget mids, because that's a big topic of conversations. Again, people will still be eyeing up a kind of Embuemo replacement, probably foolishly, but also to fit in other things, whether it be Jackson's, Isak's, Trent's, and the like as well, or just because they prove a little bit better value than the 6 millions at the moment, as Danny found out to his horror this week. But we can talk about that a bit later on. I won't go through all of this just yet, but we also have just a little bit of a disclaimer. We're going to look at target defenders. We're going to look at Wolves. Going to have a look a little bit at captaincy, fixture swings, and that sort of thing as well, and lots of questions at the end. So I'm going to make the best use of Mikey whilst we've got him. So we'll crack straight into this one if we can. So first of all, let's just do a stock check, all right? So in our midfields, I'm guessing everyone here has 3 premiums. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, 3 premiums. And in the other 2 spots at the moment, Mikey, who are you rocking at this point in time?
I've got Brennan Johnson.
Oh.
And Rodgers. Okay,
right. So 1 old toy, 1 medium old toy. And Danny, you've done a little bit of switcheroo in this territory.
Yeah, well, we'll save the suboptimal Sally for later, but I've got the new 59-minute Eze in place, which is fantastic. Love those 1-pointers. So he's now firmly on my bench at the moment. And yeah, a cheap midfielder. A cheap midfielder.
What are they on the screen?
They might be. They might not.
Oh, okay, right. Well, we like that level of masking. Okay, good. And I currently have Rodgers just been there for ages, and Enzo came in last week, and there's a bit of money in the bank, so actually one of them might get upgraded in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe not, though, depending on how things go. So let's start. I suppose I'm not going to start off by doing any kind of ranking or anything like that, but I mean, let's just go through our assessment of assuming that you have somewhere between somewhere under 6 million-ish to spend, or would you find the money for anything just above, or would you like the way what you see from any of these assets on the screen or otherwise at the moment? If we could start with yourself, Mikey, from what you've seen, so you've still got Rodgers, and we'll take that into context, see how he compares against these others here. But are you looking to downgrade Johnson? Or are you quite happy risking the minutes and that sort of thing?
No, I'd definitely go for one of his four for sure. And I think you can make a very reasonable argument for any of them, really. And so you kind of, then it depends on your play style, really, and how you feel about them and all of that kind of thing. I think Star comes into the picture, and you know, you might think that's a bit knee jerk given that he hauled last week and he probably wasn't on radar before that. But if you actually look at his minutes over the past few weeks, I mean, he's been starting all the games, he's played virtually all the minutes, and he's locked down that spot on the kind of right side of 10, kind of alongside Eze. And actually, if you look at the stats, he's kind of looking a lot more threatening than Eze. So I think that's a very good pick that many might not have considered before. And next game week 19 is when it swings for Palace, and that's Southampton at home. So that could be a very good entry point there if you can hold for a couple of weeks. I was also previously quite high on Iwobi as well. But actually, I think Sarr actually pips him, really, if we...
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think you're right to say. So I think we all probably now have seen the kind of either the whole game or the highlights of Palace against Brighton the other week, and he looks very direct, doesn't he? Full of running, really useful for counter-attacking football. The one caveat I'd give is that, you know, Brighton is probably the perfect type of game for playing that kind of approach. So you're never going to see as much of Eze in a game like Brighton away as you might do against Southampton at home, for example. So we there's a little bit of trickiness there, and I know Danny's going to talk through Eze in a few minutes' time if we can come to him in a bit. But yeah, but as you say, I think he got 90, didn't he? 90 minutes at the weekend. I think he got a good amount more minutes last night as well. He might have done 90 again, actually. But certainly, Kamada looks to be further back in the picture, so he's not really the issue. Nketiah is broadly coming up for minutes against Mateta, probably, I think, at this point in time. But we could that might be an evolving situation. And Iwobi, as you say, so he's an interesting one, because if you really want him, then now is the time, right? That's the problem. I mean, we'll look at my team later on. I'm probably not going to do anything. But the difficulty with him is he feels like you want to go now, or you wait and you probably choose between the others on the screen, Ahmad and Sarr and those sort of ones as well. Danny, I mean, do you tend to sympathise with that? If you were picking again now, I know that you obviously picked Eze last week, and you know, at the time seems like a very sensible pick to downgrade Mbeumo to. I mean, Eze is about as safe, you'd think, as a downgrade from Mbeumo as you can get, right? 90 minutes, penalties, the main man, and all the rest of it. Nice fixtures coming up, but I mean, how does it look to you now? Are you regretting that? Sorry, this is a horrible question.
No, fine. I pretty much do regret it. I mean, it comes with caveats, because it depends what happens in terms of what it's allowed. I mean, first of all, I don't think he is on penalties. I'd probably give him 10% penalty share at best, something like that. Because I know Mateta took the last one and there was something said about it at the time. I can't remember, but I'm fairly sure Mateta would have been penalties, as he might say when he's off the pitch. But obviously, in hindsight, I mean, I wouldn't normally say in hindsight something was a mistake, but what I didn't do was look quite enough at his minutes, in terms of, like, I've just made an assumption really that he was kind of just on the way back up to fitness. But I knew he'd done a few 70s, but the 70s go back to like 4 or 5 games, you know, for 75 minutes. And I probably had his minutes too high in my head without thinking too much, because it was a fairly late decision in terms of where I was going to go, and I wanted to get Isak in and stuff like that. I didn't think it would be too bad, because obviously he's got that fixture run coming up. But I mean, now I kind of hate it, because I do think that he will go back to, you know, I'm sure he will go back to 90 minutes. I mean, it's a weird one, because for the first 6-7 games, whatever it was, before he got his initial injury, he just played 90 minutes every game, as you'd expect, which is just so important right now. I say it every week, but it's all I really want. It's not all I want, but it's the absolute first box to be ticked. It's so huge at the moment with all the players that are on offer. Is who gets the 90 minutes? I mean, watching him go off at 59, he just had successive 59s. I was actually, I'd reached the point on that game. I was at the pub trying to enjoy my lunch, thinking there's nothing gonna ruin my day here. And I just thought, if you just, I'll take the 3 points. Crystal Palace look like they're going to win comfortably. Let's just take the 3 points and move on. And then the next text I had, I think Baker or something texted me saying, Eze off on 59. I was like, for fuck's sake. So I didn't even get the 3 points. So it's a bit of a sickener now, but it wouldn't necessarily that it would be that I would go to Sarr. I don't think I would. I don't think I'm there yet with Sarr. I think it would just be a case of, would I just have gone straight down to someone really cheap and just had the extra money and potentially extra transfers? It's probably more likely. But obviously, I'm already thinking about how I can get back to Mbeumo, if and when, really. Which won't be easy because his fixtures aren't fantastic even at any point, really. I think they're a bit up and down just after his difficult fixtures, whereas Palace have got a really good set of fixtures. So yeah, that's just me rambling on about my personal situation in terms of Eze. I've got him. Spoiler alert: I'm going to bench him this weekend against Arsenal. I've not got the patience right now. It's not even about patience. I believe you really need to be decisive about these guys' minutes and what they've got on offer. So if I'm not risking Eze getting even a 60 minutes, I don't even want 70 minutes against Arsenal. I might even bench him the week after. I will give him the Southampton game. And then we'll see after that, because obviously it's a very good fixture. But obviously his minutes might build back up. So that was the point. Is I just don't really know what is going on. Why is it taking him this long? Because he looks a bit sluggish. He doesn't look like he's on that energy curve. Whereas Sarr is someone who, I think with all these midfielders that we're looking at now in this debate that we're going to have, or when we're talking through these midfielders, it's kind of obvious. But with all of them, we're talking about the pros and the cons with each, or what we know with each one and what we don't know with others, and what the unknowns, which is really significant. And what we see with Sarr at the moment is, I think, just looking now, he's probably been slightly overplayed. Like I said, the fixture was perfect for him. He has actually been playing 90s basically for the last 8 weeks. So it's not like Sarr's just suddenly, the man. He's been playing every week for weeks. He's always been a player that I found to be a bit unpredictable and kind of, he's just a proper winger type player. He's not really doing it. He's not offering anything in terms of set pieces. He's just really fast and, skillful. And it is nice what you see at the moment. Obviously, you imagine he's going to have a bit more confidence now that he's the man who's just destroyed a team by himself. And he looks a bit bigger to me, which is a good sign. Even in that picture, he was always a gangly type, wasn't he? But he looks like a big lad now. So maybe he's been working hard. But obviously, what you know with Sarr at the moment is he is really fit at the moment. He's on it. Like he was playing 90 minutes and he was still, looking really sharp on 85 minutes. So that's one thing that with Sarr at the moment. Virtually, that's how I would approach it. If I had him or I was buying him, I wouldn't be worried about his minutes over the next few, at least in the short term. Obviously, that could change in the longer term. And that's one thing you've got going with Sarr at the moment is he is in the front three and he's very attacking. That isn't a huge number of boxes for me, really. I haven't really seen enough. There's other boxes that we talk about when we talk about Enzo, especially, and even Ahmad. So the conversation for me is more about probably still, and I might be wrong there, but it's more about the other two, really, and the money saving is where I'm at.
Yeah, I think one thing to add here, it's pretty obvious, I should think, by this point, but there's no such thing in this category as a sure thing.
No.
None of them. You'd be, if anything, the only player there I could be absolutely certain is going to continue with their minutes for one thing. It's going to continue on the whole with their role. And the one that's had shown the most consistent form over the season, it's Iwobi, right? It's not even actually particularly debatable. He's the one who's, FPL aside, which is an annoying point to make, he is in that sort of Kulusevski category this season. He looks really good. He's having the season of his life, I think. Really decent player. He's versatile. Unfortunately, that means he's also dropped back. He played that sort of kind of rightish wing back spot against Arsenal, didn't he, a week or two ago, which spooked people, I think. His minutes are very secure. He's taking more shots in the last 6 than Jimenez. So that in itself is quite interesting. I don't know whether he has any set pieces. I'm not sure about that. But so from that, you can't be sure exactly where he's going to play and so on. And Fulham do spread the goals around. We know this. But he's the most sure from a lot of these categories. As you say, Enzo is the one he's got set pieces. He looks in great form. He's probably just about getting into the direct shooting spaces a little bit more than, well, certainly I expected, but possibly the others. Well, it's a little bit early to say. But he also, again, has that capacity to drop deep. So it is a tricky one. I will come on to go to just do some comparison to Rodgers in a minute. But I want to ask you both, because you're both Manchester United fans in a way that I couldn't possibly not know too much about this question. But Ahmad, this is a week that a lot of people are choosing to jump in here, and he's a bit cheaper than 2 or 3 of the others there. He's 5.2, I think. So do you like it, Mikey? Has he impressed you? Do you feel like he's got a secure spot and a role now, or is it too early to say?
I think he's about as secure as can be. Pretty obvious that Ruben loves him and showing exactly what he wants out of the team and out of his players. And you can contrast that to other players that seems to have dropped or doesn't seem to like the look of as much. So there's a clear contrast between those two. In terms of FPL, I'm less convinced. I mean, he was electric against City. It was absolutely amazing performance. But it's that conversation about what role does he play in the team? Could he drop back to right wing back? Is he going to play as a 10? He might flip between the two roles, and just don't know really. And his output is mainly assists, which you can't rely on that too much really, especially with the players that he's got around him being still inconsistent, I think. So I wouldn't put anyone off him, but I would caution, he's not going to get hauls like he did against City every week.
So for you, he's more of a watch and wait a little bit more, say, than Enzo and Iwobi. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. And Danny, it would be remiss of me not to come to you with pretty much the same question. But is he someone that you're considering going forward, or do you think people are jumping the gun?
Yeah, I've definitely given it consideration. Sorry, I was just miles away there thinking about Iwobi still. I just want to say before we move on from Iwobi, like he's someone I haven't watched enough. I feel like I don't know enough, so I'm missing something there. So I do want to hear. I'm glad to hear what you guys think. It's funny, isn't it? Because I'm looking at his last games, and obviously it's only really now and maybe the week just gone that we're all talking about the cheap midfielders, that that being a really hot topic. But it just so happens that Iwobi's last 2 games are Liverpool away and Arsenal. So it's probably a good reason why it's just funny, isn't it? It goes a bit quiet, because before that he's got 15 points against Brighton, 5, 7, 5, 2, 11. Like you say, he's just been doing the business for ages, hasn't he? So you guys have seen that. I don't know why, but sometimes players just pass me by. I've not really watched Iwobi enough. So maybe I need to look at that, because they've got amazing fixtures coming up. But yeah, I also wanted to say, by the way, before I forget, that I'm aware that I don't like the sound on my microphone. It's not very good. So for any viewers thinking they hate the sound of my mic, I've actually got a brand new mic. I didn't have time to fit it today, and a nice expensive one that I'm hoping Baker kind of give me some tips about what might be good to use. So I've got a nice brand new mic for the next time we do a video, so hopefully sound will be better. But yeah, Ahmad, I mean, like Mikey says, he's as nailed as anyone can be outside of Bruno, I think. And he's still, he's obviously a favourite and he's going to play. I still think there's this kind of tier where Bruno is definitely going to play every single game, but even he's getting the odd sub early, which is crazy. I mean, alarm bells are going off for any owners of any United player when Bruno is getting subbed off on 70 or whatever it was, like the last game or the game before I think it was. And so, yeah, I think you can be fairly confident that Ahmad's going to start at the moment, but we don't know if he's going to start in the front 3 or if it's going to be right wing back. It's probably, trying to be really objective, still more likely to be right wing back, just because he can and he's very good there. Obviously, Mazraoui might be injured. I don't really know exactly what happened with him. I know he's flagged, but there were talks that he might have I heard the word tweaked. I don't like the word tweaked. It sounds worse than something cautious. So he might have to. And obviously, if Garnacho is going back into the squad, if he's obviously giving everyone a good chance, and it looks like Garnacho is going to get another chance. Bruno obviously takes up one of those spots, so he's got one spot in the front 3 on the right. Otherwise, he's right wing back. But obviously, even if he's right wing back, he's still good. He's still decent. And this is the thing with Ahmad. He's such a good player. He's so sort of skillful. He's got so much energy that it's also just a very good position for him right wing back, because he does a bit of everything. He gets back. He's kind of He's good at holding width, at stretching teams and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if he's positionally disciplined enough yet to just be trusted with the front three spot. I don't know. I doubt it. You know, he might do, but there's obviously serious unknowns there. Then obviously the fact that just the type of player he is, you know, he's a little bit like Phil Foden, or a younger Phil Foden, in the sense that, like, he's brilliant technical player, and the similarities actually as well in terms of what Rodgers offers as a player. You know, they're sort of brilliant ball carriers. They're technically brilliant. They kind of, but they've kind of got their head down a lot because of that. The type of the way they play. Ahmad still doesn't strike me as the sort of guy who's a fantasy player out and out. He's obviously a good pick and he could be amazing, but it doesn't strike me as one of these guys who's looking for that killer ball, that killer shot kind of consciously. It just comes as a function of him being so fast and skillful and technical, and he's just all over the place. So it doesn't feel like a really reliable source of points, as well as the fact that I don't really know which position he's going to be in, and as well as the fact that because he's young, you never know when that sudden dip comes, or a bit of confidence, or anything can suddenly happen with a player like that, and then they need to be on the sidelines for a bit, or a few early benchings and stuff. So it's definitely more precarious with Ahmad, which is obviously all of the things that we wouldn't really say about Enzo, and which is why I currently lean Enzo in terms of just slightly. And again, that might be completely wrong because you're making an early bet here. You're making an early bet that could easily go either way. Ahmad could just continue to be an outstanding superstar who just gets better and better every game and just plays right wing and he just starts absolutely destroying teams. Obviously, that's a possibility. With Enzo, it's the 90 minutes is absolutely nailed, and properly. You know, 95 minutes. He's not coming off. He looks so energetic at the moment, Enzo. He's so on it. I will ask you in a sec, Rich, about Ahmad as well and Enzo. I think you need to talk about them together, though, you know, because you're comparing what those knowns and what those unknowns are. As I say, Enzo is just fixed in that position at the moment. He's a bit like Sarr. You're kind of riding a wave. I don't know how long it's going to last. Maybe he's just this insane engine naturally. But I mean, Enzo is crazy. He is just up and down. It doesn't matter if it's 4-0. It doesn't matter if it's what the scoreline is. It's 80th minute. He's just bombing up and down the pitch. He's obviously on set pieces. But not just that. I've just been watching him closely. And it's kind of been uncomfortable watching games without owning Enzo because it might not be captured necessarily in the numbers because he's not necessarily got on the end of things recently. But if you watch him, if you just watch him as the kind of the attack is progressing and he's kind of towards the edge of the box or approaching the box, he's just constantly looking, waiting, and trying to predict what's going to happen and waiting for the timing to just bomb it towards the 6-yard box. And that is literally what he's doing. He's just bombing into these goal-scoring positions. You know, when we talk about Enzo, we're not talking about a Rodri type or some kind of, you know, central midfielder type. It is a bit different from what I'm seeing in the sense that he looks like every game he wants to score a goal. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to get on the score sheet so that he can be this attacking sort of midfielder. And I'm just like, I mean, Chelsea's attack means that he gets a lot more of those opportunities. Chelsea's attacking players means they've got a lot of players to look after without having to pay as much attention to Enzo. So you just feel like because their attack's so good, you're making a decent bet in terms of odds and stats and numbers of quantity that is, you know, he'll be not involved in enough attacks to get returns, which is what's been happening basically. So it feels like a good bet when you combine it with the fixtures, because that's the other thing. Enzo's fixtures, whilst Ahmad's got some good fixtures, Palace has got some good ones soon. Enzo's are just ridiculous now. You know, I think it's until game week 29. I think that's their next difficult fixture, really difficult fixture, because I think they might play City or something. But you know, in terms of attack, that's not something I'm massively worried about at the moment. So yeah, long ramble and sort of saying the knowns and the unknowns, but that's where I sort of feel I'm just stream of consciousness. That's how I feel about the two of them at the moment. But what about you, Rich?
Yeah, just whilst you were explaining your position on it, I thought it was quite interesting. I just had a quick check as to who sits what position in terms of just raw XGI at this point in time. And actually, even this is really interesting. Would you be able to guess who's the highest for XGI out of the people on the screen?
So just total XGI for the season?
For the whole season, yeah.
Yeah, not
bearing in mind minutes and everything else, you know.
Ooh, I would say that I'd be confident that it's not Ahmad or Sarr, but I might be completely wrong because I've not looked enough at Iwobi. So I'd be tempted to actually say it must be Enzo or Iwobi. So I'll throw it out there and just go Enzo.
Enzo.
Mikey, do you want to? Enzo as well. It's already Sarr.
Is it?
Yeah. So, yeah, I found this to be fascinating. So he's already trumped Iwobi, who's played more or less 90 minutes every week, every fixture and that sort of thing. But Sarr is already out here. He's actually almost at Rodgers' amount as well. There's not an awful lot in it. We're talking kind of 5-6 XGI for these kind of people across the season already, so it's not massive. But Sarr's already in the sort of top of that category. I think it's worth giving him a few more games to watch, as Mikey advised earlier on, and I lean that way on Ahmad as well. Just very quickly on Ahmad, Danny and Mikey, I think. Now, okay, I'm going to get pelters for this. As you know, my position on this pod is more towards for Tifo watchers. I'm more of the Joe Divine here. I know I don't know as much as other people, probably, but I've always struggled with buying in an attacking player who I don't regard as a good ball striker. Yeah, I know. Apologies for saying that, but I watch his highlights, and sometimes I think to myself, it gets trapped under his feet, and he doesn't strike it especially well, and it does, that sort of thing. Again, early days for me, I haven't watched enough of him. I know our good friend Spencer watched a lot of him at Sunderland, and I've seen some highlights to suggest that he can bang in a free kick from 25 yards. So I'm clearly not fully aware of everything here. But so I have one or two reservations about him in terms of, really what he's going to do in terms of output. But he's clearly a very good player and clearly is winning the manager's trust. But I want a few more games, I think, for him. I don't think, and this is my final question before we move on to another segment, really, is would you be comfortable moving out Rodgers for these types of players? Because I know that is a discussion for many at the moment. Some people it's to make a little bit of money. I'm not convinced on some of these as a must move Rodgers on at this point of time. I think Enzo might be the exception for me. He's the only one there I feel comfortable with thinking, okay, I can move. I would be happy to move on Rodgers for Enzo because of the long stretch of fixtures, because of the potential there, because of the set pieces and so on. The others, I don't know whether I feel like it's a must move. So just very quickly, I'll come to Mikey on that before we move to the next segment. Do you think these are better picks than Rodgers at this point in time?
I don't think any of them are a standout above him. And I think if I was to decide whether to move on Rodgers for any, I don't feel comfortable doing any. And I think Enzo would be the only one where I would consider it.
Danny?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer objectively is that none of them are better than Rodgers at the moment, because we talked about all the knowns and the unknowns, and what we know about Rodgers is he's basically number 10, sort of 80, 85 minutes plus every game. He's going to play every game in a really attacking position. I'm not wild about Rodgers' output in terms of the likelihood of output, just the style of playing kind of thing. So the short answer is that no, I don't think they are. And so I don't think anyone has to really, make that move. Obviously, I'm saying this as someone who actually has made the move, spoiler alert to someone, but that's kind of, again, because of my specific position, and that I quite possibly need someone to play every week for a bit. So I'm kind of making a bit of a bet. I'm not comfortable. Whilst Rodgers is very good, reliable, 8th attacker, bench, he'd play and he could get something. He's not someone I want to play every week. I wouldn't feel comfortable about that at the moment. So I'm willing, and therefore that's why it depends on the team. I'm willing to kind of make a bet on someone who might be better, and they might even be quite a bit better, at least with the kind of fixtures and stuff like that. So it's a gamble. It's not necessary, and you definitely don't need to do it unless you can think about it. If you're in my position, where they're going to be playing for me, from this weekend onwards for a bit. So
cool. Okay. Hopefully, by the way, there was just a little bit of a sound issue there. So we'll just have a quick check of the microphone there. But I know it's a topical issue. Actually, on this, thank you very much. I'm going to say it now before we move on to the next section. To Adam from Above Average, he's given me out of his own pocket. He sent me an old microphone of his, which is perfectly serviceable for the likes of us anyway. So thank you very much. He sent all the way down from Aberdeenshire. So great guy. Make sure you watch them this evening if you get to us first. You never know, we might get lucky in that regard. We'll go on to do one more section, because after the next section, Mikey, I'll jump into your team, because I know that you have a a time constraint as well. But this is interesting to you as well because you own one of these two players. A lot of people moving off of people like Nori because of the suspension and dreadful form and the fact that he plays for Wolves. And of course, people who sometimes still maybe have the worst pick in the game, Rico Lewis. So he's an option for moving off as well. I know people are saying, oh, hold him. He's got the early kickoff and whatever. But no, absolutely not. He's going one way or another. I don't care. Anyway, that aside, Mike, it seems good to come to you first. You've had Robinson for a long time, I think it's fair to say, from pretty much the off.
Pretty much, yeah, game week 1, I think.
Would you, I mean, you've been pretty consistent on him. Is it fair to say you're very happy with him and you would quite happily advise others to join you?
Very happy owner. Yep. He's going to play all the games, all the minutes. Exactly what you want from a defender. Might even have a chance of a clean sheet. You never know. I think with this one, it's really quite clear in the sense that you get in Robinson, you get some assist threat, but not much goal threat, versus Daniel Munoz, who is pretty much all goal threat actually, and not that much on the assist front. So it would seem quite clear that maybe there is a preference for one or the other, but with Munoz, you just don't know when that goal is going to come. So there's sort of a more steady stream of points maybe from Robinson versus the very sort of high-low of Munoz. So take your pick in terms of your play style, I think, on that one.
Yeah, see, it's interesting you say that because I think Robinson is perfectly well suited to you, Mikey, because he's a very reliable player. He's going to be up and down for 90 minutes. He seems to, a lot of his assists have been quite late on, haven't they? I've noticed that he seems to pull out a kind of 5-6 pointer right at the end of a game, which is incredibly useful. And a lot of people tell me that they think he's the best Fulham player this season. They really do think he's had an outstanding season, that sort of thing. I toss up between him and Iwobi from what I've seen, but yeah, there is that. I mean, actually, just very quickly on Munoz, obviously suspended this week, so probably don't buy him right now. But he's a really difficult one because I think I was thinking to myself, if I had Sarr and Munoz at the moment, for example, or something of that order, or Rodgers and a Munoz, etc. I hate the idea of four at the back this season, but Munoz might weirdly enough. I was talking to Jossie about this earlier, another of our former guests, and there is a genuine case for he does play that occasional striker role. He's just bursting in at this ridiculous rate. He looks more likely to get a goal from around the penalty spot or 6-yard box than an Eze. It doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, your logic brain goes straight to, well, obviously I would pay the 6.5 million mid and blah blah blah. So it is a really difficult one on this. Danny, you've moved on for one of these as well. Do you like both? I mean, picking in isolation or if you were comparing the two, do you think you would look to get both, or is one stand out for you?
Yeah, I'd love to have both. It's certainly not one standout. I mean, even the fact that even with Munoz suspended this week, I spent a long time actually on Saturday before the price rise because I had 2 free transfers and I was going to go early anyway. I spent a long time deciding between these two, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm happy or not. I feel okay. I feel content because I think you can't not feel content with Robinson. The reason why I ended up buying Robinson was can you hear me okay? Is it a bit?
Yeah, it's Mikey, I don't know whether you can hear this as well, but Danny's mic at the moment just sounds very kind of flickery to me.
Might be too close to it. Is it better now?
No.
You should have let me use my brand new microphone, shouldn't you?
Quite possibly. Yeah.
I can change to
cool. Well, Mikey and I will just carry on and have a bit of a chat for a moment, and we'll bring you back in a little bit. But yeah, I think so. As Danny was trying to explain, I think Robinson, good timing. Obviously, this week, he's someone that he's been targeting as well. Do you think you're good to go back, Danny?
Yeah, I hope so. Is that better?
That sounds good. It's very loud, but it's good. Yeah.
Oh my god! So this whole have my sound been terrible the whole episode because I was actually had the wrong mic attached. That's why.
Oh no. No, it sounds fine now. Yeah, you're okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Right. Well, again, I'll have a new microphone next episode. So all I was saying was, yeah, very close between them. I landed on Robinson really purely a fixtures play because obviously I'm a Hall owner as well, and they do rotate very well, kind of especially in the short term. So that's why I'm a little bit stuck. So it could end up being really annoying because, again, I've got a bit of a benching headache. I might be benching Hall this week. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about that. But obviously, Robinson's got Southampton at home. But there's some weeks coming up. I think it's like it's game week 20, especially where Hall, I think Hall's got a particularly bad fixture. Munoz has got Chelsea, which isn't great, whereas Robinson's got something like Ipswich at home. They rotate really nicely for quite a while. So it's very difficult for me to have gotten Munoz this week and kind of had no bench. Again, Robinson's someone I don't feel like I know very well. I just there's something about Fulham players. I don't feel like I know him very well. I know him more from the last few weeks. I mean, that performance against Liverpool was incredible. Obviously, he's kind of captain, 90 minutes, very good defender. He's cancelled out a lot of these good attackers recently, but then he just bombs into the box. 6 assists shocked me. I wasn't aware. I know he got 2 against Liverpool, but I didn't know he had 6 assists for the season already. So anyway, and obviously Fulham's defence is good. Fulham's defence is a little bit like I'm hoping that they pull through with these clean sheets at home because Fulham seem to play really well in setups different against these big sides, and then they're at home to an easy club and potentially go for it a bit more and a bit more open at the back. So it could come back to bite. But Munoz, I'm uncomfortable now without Munoz, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to get him in the future because obviously, again, it's a bit like Sarr. There's a lot of things going right at Palace. It's not just because Munoz is in these positions to score goals. I know Munoz looked great. Palace suddenly look a lot better as a team. Palace have massively improved, and you look at suddenly their back 3/back 5 or whatever you want to call it, especially their back 3, these kind of centre backs is working really well. Chalobah, Lacroix, and Mark Guay, who are good defenders, and you've got Henderson behind them. There was a bit of a breakdown on Match of the Day, and they just looked so structured. They were just kind of these 3 massive guys at the back that were all kind of really well spaced between, and it just looked like really functional. And I thought, oh, and then obviously Hughes is suddenly looking a lot better and lively, and you've got Lerma, and then all these things benefit Munoz, allowing him to go forward and play on the right, but also the way Sarr's playing helps him. Obviously Munoz was a lot better at the end of last season when what's his name was still there. He's gone to Bayern. Elise. And just having that extra threat on the right. So it's like all the pieces have fallen into place for Munoz now. And where previously you might have owned him and you sort of think you're relying on goals, I don't really think that's the case at the moment because they look very good at the back. So you've actually got all the avenues potentially. But obviously he's got Arsenal suspended this week, and then he's got someone tough the week after. Toughish, is it? I can't remember. Bournemouth away or maybe something like that. Yeah, Bournemouth away. So I'm a little bit. I feel like I've got some breathing room, and I know what Rich is like. Rich has already got some master plans. He's sneakily devising. He's watching everyone get Robinson, who he can't get this week, and he's there with the worst pick in the game, and he'll be sneakily devising a plan to get Munoz in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I do want a piece of that. It's just where does it come from? Because I've got Hall and Robinson, so I'm definitely going to see it through until Robinson gets his couple of really good fixtures out of the way. Ipswich at home. If I did make a move to Munoz, it would be suboptimal. But I am sadly suboptimal as of this week. So yeah, go on, Rich. You tell me.
Yeah, I was going to say I know that as you say, you love the suboptimal play. Mikey's just popping out for a second, but we'll come back to him. Yeah, it's a particularly personally difficult issue for me because I can see why it's so attractive to go to Robinson. It's an easy move for those people who made the error of picking 8 Nori, which I think it's fair to say hasn't gone very well. But yeah, in my position, it's very difficult. So I've got Trent, Gabriel, Hall, Milenkovic, who is the ultimate kind of glue guy of just sitting there and so on. And I've got the worst pick in the game, Rico Lewis. So it is very difficult to squeeze in someone like, because logically, right, I should go down to Anderson minus, if you know what I mean, Anderson downwards, if he ever comes back. It should be someone like an O'Shea or a Burgess or whoever's starting for Ipswich, something like that. They got horrible fixtures, of course. And I don't need them. I can rotate Milenkovic and Hall forever, pretty much. They actually rotate pretty well. I end up benching Milenkovic points half the time anyway. But as you say, I don't think I've got enough impetus to go in on Robinson this week, just simply because I don't really need to. It seems a bit, the value of a transfer. Again, we've talked about this a lot, Danny. Every week this seems to come up. Is the value of the transfer. The value of holding it just about beats the value of using it. And I found that time and time again this season. Just holding it, if I can, just has much more power. And that's where I am. But it's difficult. I think it really does depend on when you are going. There's nothing wrong with having both, of course. I don't know how they rotate. It's very much similar to the budget mids. So how they rotate is actually pretty important for some people. So I think that is the issue. For me, if like in an outright, who am I most likely to buy? It's Munoz. Just because, I've owned him before. He's terrifically frustrating and fun all at the same time. But there's logically, Robinson covers far more bases. His defense is solid. Although, as you say, Danny, no clean sheets at home, which is a bit odd. I'm sure that will change with these fixtures coming up. But I don't know. Yeah, Munoz looks like the kind of pick at the moment where if he continues to play like he does, it could be anything any week. It's one of those really kind of, it would be frightening not to own him, I think. The only thing, there's a lot of away games, aren't there? I know that someone said that already in a pod I've listened to recently, so that is a tricky one to consider. But yeah, Mikey, what we'll do, should we go on to your team? Because I know that this is a little bit of a good opportunity just to see where you're going, because I know that you've got to drop out at some point soon. We'll skip past Wolves. And actually, I wanted to talk to you about assistant managership. Okay. Well, we'll come to your team first of all, and you can tell me if you've got enough time to give your quick views on assistant manager. But yeah, how are you looking? So I'm just going to read this out for because we're trying to get good and do Spotify and all that. So Flecken in goal, Saliba, Robinson, and Gabriel, very settled defence. Even Flecken, not terrible this week, I suppose. Well, it's not good either. But Rodgers, Palmer, Salah, and Saka across the middle, and Cunha, topical. João Pedro and Isaac, and a bench of Verbruggen, Johnson. I can't actually see the other one, but I'm going to guess Van Heck and Greaves. Any thoughts this week? What are your plans, and where are you going in the next few weeks? If you want.
Yeah, so I'm very happy to roll this. Really, it's just keeping an eye on Cunha if there is a ban, which is seemingly unlikely now, given that they're probably going to appeal. So probably leave that alone. And I've got 2 free transfers at the minute, so happy to roll that. To have 3, which is a luxury. I don't think I've had free transfers all season really. So I'm happy just to leave that there. In terms of kind of like longer term plans with the team, it will be Brennan out for one of those midfielders most likely. But I'm happy to keep the powder dry at least for this week, because I've got Rodgers playing Man City at home and Man City are a state at the minute, so I'm more than happy to play him and get free transfers next week, and keep an eye on those Fulham and Palace assets especially. So, and then take it from there.
Right, dreaded moment for you, Mikey. I'm going to invite unsolicited advice from Danny.
Oh God, right? Yeah, I wasn't thinking then. I was just wondering about the assman chip because I know Mikey was going to talk about that.
We'll try and squeeze in 5 minutes if we can.
Yeah, let's have a quick look for the unsolicited advice. It's just you got to roll. I was also daydreaming about just being slightly annoyed about Cunha because he got that one bloody goal, from one shot that the keeper should have saved. It got deflected.
We'll get to that.
He assaults a man and still walks away off the pitch with full bonus. And now he's obviously going to be playing a rubbish Leicester team and probably get a hat-trick. But yeah, okay, we'll come to that. So quite annoying. But yeah, it looks like a roll there, Mikey, doesn't it?
And then at some point, it will be Wood.
I have a speech prepared for this. Every week I have a speech prepared about Chris Wood, as you know. If you watch back previous episodes, I know that you're all watching this a bit like I rewatched the entirety of The Sopranos not long ago. This is the pod that is probably quite similar in the level of quality to that. So you know, you can watch it back, you can get new things from it, and Chris Wood's speeches are in there as well. Very quickly then, Mikey. I know you have to go in a few minutes' time, but if if you want to say anything, because I know that Mikey basically did the only research out of all three of us into the assman chip. Danny and I don't really know anything about it, so you don't have to explain how it works or any of the rules, Mikey. But what's your kind of reaction to it, and you know, can you see it being powerful, and when do you think you might consider using it?
My take is that this is the most powerful chip, and we're going to have and actually, despite the uproar about it, and it is pretty bad, it is also, for us engaged managers, a gift. There's a big ceiling on this chip, and we're probably talking around about 60-70 points potentially if you want to go down that route. So there's two different routes you can take. You can go safe, and you can go with a Liverpool or an Arsenal and bank some safe points if you like, or you can go for the ceiling of a team lower down the table, and then the ceiling is 50 plus points really. I don't know which way is the I guess optimal way, if you want to call it that. It's a little bit hard to tell, and probably need a bit more research and thinking about it. One key thing at the moment is that the table is very, very condensed at the minute. So you've got Forest in 4th on 28 points, and 6 points behind in 13th. You've got Man United, and so that part of the chip where you know you're playing a team five places above you to get that extra 10 points for the win, or the extra 5 points for the draw. If you pick a team and they sail up the table, then the ceiling drops, doesn't it? So there's quite a lot of jeopardy there. So you might want to, you know, you'd have to reassess it a bit when it comes to, you know, game week 24 and take it from there. There is also a school of thought where you can use it right at the end of the season as well, and really, you know, potentially boost your, you know, if you're in dire straits at the end of the season, and you really need to throw caution to the wind right at the end as well. So there's lots of ways to play this, which introduces variance, obviously, which is not to everyone's taste, but I think for engaged managers, it's net good, but also massive headache.
Yeah, that's a good summary, Mikey. Thank you very much. I think actually, because I know it's 20 to 6 now, so I should probably just thank you for your time this, I guess, afternoon still, and for thank you for joining us. And Danny and I will endeavour to give our sort of, well, just a lame version of our thoughts on this once you leave us today. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully you can drop on again at some point soon.
Cheers, boys.
Cool.
Cheers, Mikey.
Thanks. So I'll carry on. Yeah, to be honest with you, the best advice I can give anyone on this is it seems to me that, okay, so no one realistically outside of kind of basement dwellers who haven't held down a steady job for 5 to 10 years would play FPL Challenge, right? So try and think of this in that kind of mode of like, it might be worth spending a little bit of time thinking, okay, I would punt on that manager for the next 3 weeks now, and seeing kind of what scores you would actually get out of that scenario. You know, scribble down a manager for the next few weeks, that sort of thing, and start to get into the zone of how that might work, because that's the only way. I think for me, it feels like one of those things that unless I actually really try and focus and get into the mindset of I would be realistically backing that manager for the next 3 weeks, or I would pick that manager for 2 weeks and take a punt on the third week, and whatever it is. Until I get into that practical mindset, I'm never going to really get my head inside this one. So I'm sure there are a lot of people with better views than I will. But Danny, do you feel like you've got a take on this at this point in time? We can revisit it once we're a bit more settled with it. But we thought, given that we were a week late on this news, you probably weren't going to be using this pod for assistant manager.
No, I'm sure we'll come back to it. I don't really want to think about it yet. I won't say what we said on the chat before. I nearly did then. I need to in another chat on the subject of ass. But yeah, I'm not going to think about it too much yet, because I don't really want to. I mean, it's first of all, it's such a wild chip with so much going on, and there's obviously so much potential variance with it that's quite scary. That's the worrying thing, is that anything could happen. And I think for the most part at the moment, I'm allowing the people who want to look into it, and obviously thankfully we've got models like FPL Review, and we've got Rob Teed looking at it from a kind of betting odds perspective, and I'm quite happy at the moment to let that all gather and let the models and the algorithms reduce that variance to some extent, or at least try to, so that because it's so swingy. I mean, I think it's nicer for people who might be ranked 2 millionth or 3 millionth. It's certainly an opportunity if you want to throw something at it, because it could be so swingy. There's an opportunity to get a load of points there. If you're doing a bit better, if you're doing okay, I think you just want to control it and get what points you can out of it. And especially with the first and maybe the only season we'll ever use it, because it probably will be. People were talking about it being there every year, but I would imagine actually there'll probably just be a mystery chip every year. And they'll probably see that as being the kind of appeal, and playing around with that, because ultimately what they want to do with these chips, I'm pretty sure, is to increase engagement and to get people who maybe were falling off more engaged, or people who are behind. It's like Alan from FML speculated ages ago. He's like, I bet it's going to be like a Mario Kart chip, and straight away I was like, oh my god, because I used to be the king of Mario Kart, and I've got to say, and I used to hate it. Every time you're in first and everyone in last gets a lightning or an invincibility, and you just get bananas and green Coopers, and you just knew it was going to be that kind of chip, which it's not really, but it has the potential to be a big jumper. But I think without much thought, and again thinking kind of shortcuts of it and what it could look like, I think the best advice from me, and I don't even want to say advice like I'm some kind of expert or anything, but what I'm certainly thinking about it, and it's almost making me a little bit restless actually, in terms of thinking about my team now and moving forward in the next 6, 7, 8 weeks, is I think you want to be. I mean, first of all, Ben as well has done a sort of rough plan, which sounds very logical, and I'd be surprised if anything kind of more optimal emerges, where he's sort of suggested this, something like, I can't remember exactly, but it was like a wild card game week 30, then the assman chip 31 to 33 or whatever it is, and then free hit and then bench boost and so on, and it all looks very logical because you get the double game week out of the assman chip. So hopefully that does emerge as the template pick, because then it gives you a kind of path that you can choose to either divert from that, or take a different path, or go with the template pick. But I think either way, what you really want to think about is, what I'm going to be thinking about is, I want to be going into it with as many transfers as possible. I think that's really important. You've got to think of it as almost like transfers are twice as valuable at that point. You need twice as many of them, because, well, actually, you don't need twice as many of them. That's wrong, isn't it? Because I've not looked into the rules properly there, because you can't transfer players and managers, can you? I think I just assumed you could for a second there. But even if you can't, say you can only transfer a manager and not a player as well. Or obviously, what I'm saying is, if you've got 5 transfers or 4 transfers, you obviously can do both, and you're very likely to want to do both. You're not going to go through a 3-week period, and it's very unlikely that you're going to get through a 3-week period without making transfers to players as well. And I think the optimum way to play the chip isn't going to be to leave it on one manager. It's going to be to switch between. So the absolute key for me in terms of foresight is planning to have loads of transfers. So that's where I want to be. And actually, this is the first time in the season for a long time I can remember now. Not first time in the season, but for the last 6 or 8 weeks, I've had at least 2 transfers or 3 transfers. And I'm now down to 0 at a time where I'm thinking, oh, I've got some moves that I want to make in a few weeks, and then I want to have 5 transfers for this chip. So, yeah, it's a bit of a headache at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. We'll revisit that at a later date, no doubt. I think I think it's come at a time, isn't it, where I think everyone probably just wants a little bit more time to kind of get into the mode of it. And when you have a little bit of a plan, we will come back and look at that as well. We're going to talk, obviously, higgledy-piggledy tonight. So very apologies for anyone who looked for a kind of logical, linear approach to the pod. Like and subscribe. Always a good time. Always do it when there's something wrong that's happened. But smash them buttons. Cunha and Rayanate Nuri on the screen. Both obviously not well. It's hard to say, isn't it? Rayanate Nuri, I think, has been a pretty big fail for most people. Especially seeing as that they're probably looking to reverse it to someone that they would have sold, like Trent, for example. But Cunha is a funny one because I personally, so you and I actually sold last week, which many other podcasters would have told us that we were wrong, that we were foolish. But I saw something that I didn't like. He was dropping consistently deep. He looked frustrated. I mean, that actually came to pass, didn't it? You know, the gelling wasn't there. And let's be honest with you, I know you've briefly touched on it, Danny. I mean, he got pretty lucky, really. He's obviously a really good player and all that, and not having a pop. He can do that. He can pull a shot out the bag and score from 25 yards. We've benefited from it. I'm not going to complain too much. But I thought it looked like a pretty good decision, to be honest with you, to ship him for Isak last week. I'm quite happy with the decision, even if it was only 2 more points or something. Obviously, he couldn't have projected the red, well, not really a red card, but the sort of fracas and that sort of thing. But both players a sell for you, or I suppose you'd be happy to wait one more on Cunha, presumably, if owners get lucky.
Yeah. If, you know, we did it because we wanted to get to Isak, and we wanted to keep Wood. You know, both separately wanted to do that, and justifiably so. I mean, I still rate Wood long term. I'm sure you're going to talk about him, but 1 millimeter, and it would have been fine because Wood would have got a 9-pointer as well. You know, that goal. I mean, not quite sure how it was offside. That was an absolute killer. All we wanted was for Wood to score as well, and it was just so close. And yeah, these are the swings. But I mean, Cunha, I think if he'd have got a red card, he probably would have still got full bonus because he was that far ahead. I think the person in second had like 23 BPS or something. He was on 49 with 1 goal. You know, his bonus potential is ridiculous. But I'll try to be honest. I'm quite glad to see a few selling him this week. I think people have got a bit carried away. Everyone's already made like the whole transfer plans around Cunha being banned. Whereas I think all along it was much less likely for me that he would be banned for this weekend. They charged him a lot faster than I thought they would. But I still can't see him being banned for this weekend unless they do something. It's a little bit unprecedented, really. I know. In most cases, it seems to take much longer. I'd still be surprised if he's banned this year, but he might be, and I kind of hope he is. Apart from the fact that I will probably buy Chris Wood, but I will be worried this weekend because Leicester are shocking, and in terms of defend, you know how they defend, which I sort of. As soon as Van Nistelrooy got the job, I tweeted that I didn't have any faith in him. I don't trust him as a manager. I know it sounds brutal. It just doesn't strike me as the sharpest tool in the box. And he might be good. Maybe he sort of sets up in a kind of a nice structure that the players can relate to, and it might get a few points. That might be okay. You know, obviously he already got 4 points. But I think the structure that he sets up in isn't one that's going to be able to. He's not going to be able to change it much. I don't think he doesn't. You know, he's not particularly interested in defending really. So Leicester just strikes me as the team that you really want your attackers to play against. And I will be worried this weekend now with Cunha, especially already being 7 points down on it in terms of Wood, because Cunha's going to be even more pissed off, and he's just going to be like, you know, he could be thinking, I need to squeeze everything out before the club loses me for 5 games, 6 games. If they appeal, maybe more. Could be out for a long time. And I know it kind of sounds silly, but players thinking, you know, they have to look after themselves a little bit less as well if you know you're going to be out for 2 months anyway. So I will be worried.
Yeah, it's a frustrating situation, I think it's fair to say, because I mean, everyone en masse is going to sell next week anyway, right? I mean, regardless of the outcome, pretty much, unless they've got lots of other fires and that sort of thing. So it's frustrating. I think I mean, as a former wearer of glasses myself, he's done it for me. I'm done with Cunha. You know, how dare he? You know. Yeah. So not cool, Mateus.
No, it's not.
But yeah, on a serious note, he should be banned as soon as possible. And you know, I will pour scorn on all managers that get any more points from him this week. In terms of replacements, I think it's fair to say if you are acting, I think I'd probably stick with saying the only viable replacements for Cunha if he doesn't get banned is only if you really wanted to turn it upwards, and even then I really don't see the point of doing that this week if he's not in that situation. If he is banned, again, I said I wouldn't give a speech about Chris Wood. I'm not going to, but I've briefly said this to Danny before, but if you need persuading, then don't pick him because you probably don't deserve it. And it seems pretty apparent and pretty obvious to me, but that's okay because you know the different styles, different interests, and so on. You know there are other options available, or other hobbies. You know, go somewhere else and do something else. Rain and Nori, we discussed replacements there, so I think we're on safe territory here. But yeah, I think they still look bad. We don't know anything about the manager. It seems like a fairly easy move on after this week if you are still packing them. But yeah, they haven't looked good. I think it was viable to sell before, and it still is. But one more week for Cunha if you have him. Well, I hope it goes badly. Assman, we've talked about. We're not on one of those pods where we're nice to you and want you to score points. You know, we're trying to keep them all for ourselves. Fixtures. I think we did have a question. Actually, I'll cover it now, seeing as that we had this question later anyway. Frazier, our good friend, asked for any great fixture swings to target. I mean, actually, looking forward, we covered two of them, which is Fulham and three really. Fulham, Chelsea, and Palace soon in game week 19, probably. Anything else you're looking at? Anything on the horizon that you're eyeing up?
I don't think so, actually. Apologies to Fraser there because I haven't really thought about that one because I'm not really thinking of it in terms of fixture swings. I'm just thinking a bit more in terms of players. Because I think there's just there's a few obvious sort of chunks, isn't there? But they're actually for the big teams anyway. You know, Arsenal have got very good fixtures on the horizon. Liverpool and Chelsea. So I'm not one who looks too far ahead. I'm not someone who I mean, obviously, you know, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks or so. I don't really look beyond that. I'm not someone who's like looking at game week 27 saying, "Oh, I'm looking forward to having triple Bournemouth." You know, it's just not the way I play. So I don't think so. But looking at this, I'm like, when you see it on this image, I'm like, "Ooh, Chelsea." I do hope this pays off because they are, you know, if you do want to play like double Chelsea attack or Enzo, they're really good fixtures, aren't they?
Yeah, certainly do. I think I'll throw a few things your way then if I can. Last week I asked you if you were making plans for City, so I can briefly touch on that and you can just tell me no again. But I think the other thing that jumps out there is if you are a Rodgers owner, I mean, it does start to make you think actually that, you know, it's not absolutely necessary to move him on. This is why I thought Enzo was probably the best pick for my situation last week, because if it goes well, can hold him there, and you know Rodgers can probably just stay as backup. If it doesn't go well, then one of those two spots probably needs to be moved up. But even Pedro is another conversation we can have briefly when we talk through our teams, and it might be a scenario where he's the weakest player in some people's teams going forward. I don't know. It's probably quite early to say that, but you know, certainly a lot of good fixtures have passed, and that hasn't really worked out so far for us anyway. And then Watkins again. I mean, you know, back in the day, we'd be making plans for this. So it is interesting. I think the other thing to say there is obviously if you don't own Isak, okay, I suppose you can probably get away with it for a little bit longer, but I really wouldn't want to be without him for that string of purple fixtures there: Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton, Fulham in the 20s there as well. And credit to Lego, who puts together all these terrific fixture slides as well. So that definitely worth in mind. Actually, just whilst we're on it, Danny, captaincy this week, are you fairly set? I mean, I've not really given it a great deal of thought. I'm quite happy with Salah. It just looks like within a squad where there isn't an absolute home run, that looks to be, strangely enough, still the standout fixture for me. But Tottenham away. Your thoughts?
Yeah, short answer is yeah. With other teams, you don't really know what's going to happen. I don't really know what Everton will be like for Chelsea. Obviously, Everton have been defending very, very well. So don't really know what that game's going to look like. With Spurs, they only set up one way. And I know that's kind of really obvious, but that's the important thing to remember. Like, he doesn't deviate. He has these principles and that's it. So he's going to attack. And sometimes when they're playing some teams, even when they were playing City, you think, because City was so bad at the time, you think they could, beat someone 3-0 or 4-0. And I might be wrong, but I don't think they can do that to Liverpool. So they even if they win the game, it'll be goals each side. I don't think they will win the game, but obviously, it could be close because they can do great things, Spurs. But they won't change the way they play. And I don't think they're capable of stopping Liverpool scoring. You would think Liverpool will score more than once. So that game feels more predictable. And obviously with the Spurs, not too bothered about which defenders are missing here or there, but a lot of clumsy players as we saw against Chelsea, isn't there? So there could easily be penalties and stuff. So
nice one. I think we're doing quite well for time.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Again, this is a good chance to support our efforts with timekeeping by clicking likes and subscribes and all that jazz. We talked through the fixtures a bit already, so I won't dwell on it greatly. But I think for me, there's a couple of acid test fixtures this weekend that I'm really looking into. I mean, one of them is partly because of my kind of fan status, but West Ham Brighton is an interesting one because I do feel like if Pedro misses out again there on some form of return, people will start to really get quite tetchy. I think he's got a couple more very decent ones. I'm pretty sure Brentford's the week after, isn't it? So this is the next two fixtures are kind of important for Pedro. I think if he fails to return anything in the next couple of weeks, we will start to get a little bit tetchy. Last obvious good week, you might say, for Brentford, although even that is not quite such a sure thing right now because, of course, two missing centre-backs. Anything jump out at you there of interest, Danny, in terms of fixtures? I know that we've talked through a few, but anything make you think? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I suppose a few things. Yeah, totally with Pedro. I mean, what's the deal with Welbeck? That's what I was just having a look because it does seem
he's
like
out. He's out. I think. Yeah.
Is he? Well, the app's got him as ankle injury, 75% chance. Is he out? I mean,
I've seen West Ham accounts primarily which have been celebrating the fact that he's not playing because he has a good record against West Ham. I mean, most strikers do. So,
yeah, it's a shame because that is a bit worrying for him. For Pedro, because it doesn't seem to suit that 9 role very much. Whereas Welbeck really does. He's such a handful. Welbeck just like occupies all the defenders and stretches teams, and he's big and strong. And it just seems to be completely different with Pedro in the 9. It says the 9, but he never seems to be in the 9. He seems to be trying to play the 10, and he's in the 9. So then there's no one in the 9 for him to pass to or to take any defenders away. So it's all a bit confusing. And then it is annoying because the likelihood he carries on not doing much until if Welbeck comes back or they change the system. And then if Welbeck does suddenly come back, then that could well be not the time to sell. But at which point you've held on to him for 6 weeks and he's done nothing. So it's getting a little bit frustrating at the moment. And people are, desperate for moves. If I do want to get Mbeumo back, then it might well be Pedro that needs to go. But you never really want to sell a really good player who's nailed his on penalties. It's never easy. But yeah, and then just like obviously Villa and City is an interesting one. You mentioned it there in terms of Watkins. I mean, I don't know what it is with Watkins. I don't know if he's fully fit or he just needs some more love. But I've said this to myself all the time when Duran was scoring all his goals and people and fans would start saying, "Why is Duran not starting?" And I just thought it's just such a silly thing to say this, just because don't get me wrong, he's a good finisher, a good goal scorer. John Duran scoring a couple of goals. People don't realise how good Ollie Watkins is. The guy is unreal. everything. If he's not scoring goals, he just occupies an entire defence. He does so much off the ball. He's an unbelievable player. He's got everything. And you can see it now. Now this at a couple of games, or the odd game without Watkins starting and Duran starting, they've got nothing up front because Duran's a good player and good finisher at the moment, but it looks like having like Ollie Solskjaer up front on his own or Chicharito. They're not doing anything. Watkins does everything on his own. He's an incredible player, so it shouldn't even be a conversation. And maybe he just needs a bit more love because Watkins should just be getting. If you want to move someone else around, but don't take Watkins out for Duran unless he's got a fitness issue. He needs to be reminded how important he is. But he'll play again on Saturday, and that's probably good for Villa and good for Rodgers. So that game because it's going to be crazy. Probably it's going to be goals there. Like you say, Brentford Forest is interesting for sure because obviously you kind of look at it and naturally feel it will be tight, and I naturally think it's not a good game for Brentford because they're not usually good against these teams that are sit back and very robust defending kind of thing. And I'm hoping that Mbeumo somehow ends up right wing back again, which he might do with the injuries that they've got. He could well do it. In fact, it's probably more likely that he is than he isn't. Touch wood. He'll probably still score in the last 20 minutes and get full bonus. But I think it's probably more likely that he plays right wing back. I was just checking the predicted lineups, but Neil's slacking this week. He's obviously doing his Christmas shopping, so he hasn't done any updates on the teams yet on Scout. So yeah, what else stands out? What about you? I mean, Palace and Arsenal have played each other already this week.
Yeah, and that was interesting in itself. What was it, 3-2 in the end? That one, I think it was. But yeah, I think aside from what you've already said, I think a lot of people are going to be using that Manchester United fixture as another opportunity just to kind of lock in their thoughts about one or two assets. Ahmad being an obvious one. We actually had a question about Bruno Fernandes, which we'll come to later on as well.
How do you think Chelsea Everton's going to play out?
I personally can't see that being particularly this is the most obvious answer, but it doesn't strike me as being a high-scoring game. But I'd still back just because of the form that they're in at the moment. I think Chelsea winning by the odd goal seems like the most likely outcome, but it would be a very difficult fixture to kind of back the captaincy on, I think. But what's really difficult, I'm sure you've got this in your team this week, is Enzo is really awkward. I think in a way, this is the week I wasn't really sure that I wanted to use him. And I think there is still a little bit of a debate about Rodgers versus Enzo this week if you've got both. So that's not an easy one. I mean, Enzo I've just left in right now, but I think the closer it gets to deadline, that will be a bit of a thought. I think Rodgers, by the way, we didn't really talk about it, but obviously there's been a lot of speak about him drifting over to the left a bit more and that sort of thing. So maybe watching the highlights a bit more carefully would help one or two of us there as well.
I just want to touch on that Chelsea game though, still, because it is tough and really interesting again for me as well, thinking about Enzo. But obviously Everton, like you say, are defending really well, and it probably is slightly more likely that it's going to be very low scoring, and Everton will be very good. But it is Daesh who historically has been basically Daesh and done what he's doing right now and been a good, solid, functional team. And every time he plays against a really good team, just gets absolutely whitewashed. And they used to lose 5-0 to Man City every single time they played them, didn't they? It was just you could have actually gone to the bookies and put 100 quid on it being 5-0 to Man City, and it would be. And they often do that against a few good teams. And I don't really know enough about Maresca and how they're going to set up Chelsea, because, do you know what I mean? There's a reasonable chance as well that Chelsea just batter them because of that. And it's whether it's just that tactical thing that I don't really know what Chelsea are going to do, how they're going to set up. And it does apply to Enzo as well, because I think, again, it's one or the other, because Chelsea are going to end up with 80% possession in that game. And does that look like Enzo just staying back and sort of saying, well, I don't really need to get forward because the whole team is just bombarding them and someone will take care of it and I'll make sure that we don't get caught out on the break? And he sort of sits there. Or is it that he's one of the ones needed for that overload of just loads of extra bodies in there and constantly getting in something with the kind of headers and the shots? And I probably lean slightly towards the latter, thinking that maybe that's what's needed in this sort of game. Enzo's just pure desire and aggression, just ploughing into the box. and that's kind of what I'm thinking. You know, obviously it's difficult. I will touch on my team in a minute, but I've got a bit of a dilemma. But yeah, like you say, I wouldn't. That's why I'm not captaining Palmer, because it's too much. It's too much. It's a bit too unknown. But could go either way.
Yeah, and they, you know, Everton confidence after last week's 0-0 draw, you could see at the end, couldn't you, in their faces? They really was a victory for them, and fair enough. And if they could do something similar this week, then
yeah, I mean 0-0 away at Arsenal is crazy, isn't it? But then Arsenal,
yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
We've looked at Mikey's team. We're going to look at ours and then do a round of questions. Thank you to those people that have sent them in. Got some really good people that have sent questions this week as well. So I'll try and again, I'll forget one or two, but apologies in advance. We'll get to those. Danny, your team. So you've made 2 moves. Is that fair?
Suboptimal Sally.
Suboptimal Sally. She's in the room.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I should read it out, shouldn't I? I should read it out.
Yeah.
Raya, Robinson, Gabriel, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Enzo Palmer, Salah, Saka, João Pedro, Isaac and Wood. Best pick in the game. And we've got Fabianski, Hall, Eze, O'Shea on the bench. So looking pretty solid this week. Happy. So you've got no transfers now?
I've got none now. I've not taken any hits, which I don't like. I'm not comfortable. I've been so comfortable the last few weeks with transfers, and hopefully I can build them back up a bit. You know, because obviously, again, touch wood, but it does look pretty robust, doesn't it, on paper? And there'll probably be people looking at it saying, "Why the hell are you playing Enzo over Eze or even Hall?" And I'm not finalised in this position yet, but I'm not going there with Eze this week with the minutes. Obviously, you know, they're at home. It's the late kickoff. They are a good team, Palace. He could easily do something. But they're playing the best defence in the league. I'm just not happy at all about this. You know, I'm sure he'll play more than 59 minutes this time, but then it's very bizarre that he played 59 minutes on Sunday with the cup game in mind, is what we all thought, both him and Mateta. And then what was it? It was like, was it 1-1 or they were in the game? They were in the game.
That's the thing that worried me. Again, Palace fans can comment in the chat later on potentially and tell us we were wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was 1-1, and that makes it to be quite an unusual. Because let's be honest with you, conventional wisdom would say, well, who's going to unpick that defence? Who's going to be the one person to play the killer pass? Or ping a goal out of nowhere? It's going to be Eze, right? That logically, that's how our brains would think there.
Yeah, and in Mateta, in a way, Mateta's the even more strange one, because he actually looks really good at the moment. He looks sort of fit and, you know, up for it. And he's such a handful, so it's even more strange, the both of them. But I'm just not willing to go there. I've got this thing at the moment in my head, which we all should have, but with just minutes. I'm not going into a game with 60 minutes, 70 minutes, and just not knowing. I don't think he's on penalties. He doesn't look that good at the moment. If he scores, fine. Then I'll be, you know, at least I'll be some reassurance. We want to talk about reassurance. It'll reassure me slightly. Just make up words. You know, reassurance that he's a better pick, you know, for the weeks to come, and it might make it easier with the Bournemouth game and then the Southampton game. At the moment, I'm not having that. So it's actually Hall that I feel, you know, quite uncomfortable about benching. Don't really know what to think about Ipswich away, because I think they're lowest. They might even be lowest for XG in the league and or at home. But, you know, sounds a bit silly saying it. And I know Delap's suspended as well. But then Newcastle haven't been very good defensively generally, and away from home, and Ipswich have just won, and it's a big game for them. And I don't feel massively comfortable about benching Hall. I think he's a good pick this week, and I'm sure you're starting him. I can't at the moment. I think I'd rather play Enzo over him. I don't know. What do you think about those two?
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that you would have a dilemma in this respect. I would leave it as is, but then the thing you're right about Newcastle though. Okay, so they're more vulnerable away from home. There's no debate about that. That's just that's standard logic, isn't it? Really, I think Ipswich's victories have all come away from home, or at least the vast majority of them. They've only got 2 or 3, haven't they? So yeah, as you say, not much in the way of home form for goals, etc. So that is interesting in itself. I don't know. I'd be comfortable with leaving it as it is. I mean, realistically, there are no defenders you could bench for him Enzo. I think the other thing is that actually I don't know about this. I was going to say more managers who own Enzo are likely to play him this week than managers who have Hall might bench because they have 3 good defenders. I don't know, actually. That's an interesting one. We need to look at it. But I think you're right to leave it as it is for now, at least, and perhaps chew the fat a bit more on that one. But yeah, I mean, Ipswich are also, they're playing reasonably well at the moment. I think there is that. They have a goal in them. I don't expect Hall particularly to keep a clean sheet. I think he's more likely to get an assist than a clean sheet, if anything. So,
yeah. The Delap suspension is pretty significant because he always does look a handful. Not sure what they're going to be like without him, but
well, I'm sure you've still got Smodic in your draft team, so
he needs to start doing something.
Just for viewers who give a monkeys about this kind of thing, I in one of my draft teams, in the one that I'm in Danny with anyway, I got 15 points in that league this week, and I benched Ismail Assar and got 2 players sent off, Robertson and Nori. So yeah, beat that for luck. Congratulations, Jossie, whilst we're at it.
And just as a funny one on the same story, I was playing FPL Fraser, I'm sure people know, in that draft league this week, and I'd basically lost the tie. And that week, my transfer in that week was Smith, the Bournemouth defender. And basically, the only way I could win that draft game was if Smith got a clean sheet and got subbed off with a clean sheet, and then Bournemouth conceded. But as long as Bournemouth didn't concede to Bowen, and he wasn't anything to do with it, and that's exactly what happened. So sorry about that, Fraser. And I took the win in that game there. I know no one cares about our draft league, but it's still funny, isn't it? And that if I had that sort of luck in the main game.
Listen. If anyone is here still at this time, at the dark hours of the pod, then maybe they do care, and that's very kind of them. We'll finish up slide-wise with my team classic brick mail picture of the week.
Yes.
Hopefully you can enjoy that one. For those of you who are well worth YouTube to bring that up. So my lot, Raya, Hall, Alexander-Arnold, Gabriel, Enzo, Palmer, Saka, Salah, Wood, Pedro, Isaac, Bench, Fabianski, Rogers, can't actually see, Milenkovic, and Lewis, third bench where he belongs and shall stay. He's going to go as soon as possible. Of course, but basically I've got 2 free transfers, and to me, again, it's another week where I just think value of keeping the transfer greater than using the transfer, and that's I can't have any logic beyond that. But I've got 2 free transfers, 0.8. If I was gonna do anything this week, it would have been because I was so convinced that Fulham were better than what I have. I think that's probably all I can say.
Yeah, no. I think it's you're looking good there, and I'm envious, and obviously of you. We've switched places now. You're the one with all the free transfers, and I'm the one without, which is annoying. I've got bloody Eze stuck on a bench. This is the problem. Sometimes you get into a good position like I was, and move on players like Eze early, and you end up screwed. But my mistake there. But what are you going to do if Lewis is leaked to start because it's the first game of the week?
You can probably guess what I will do if he's leaked to starting.
Leave it exactly as it is. Yeah,
because he's dreadful. And I've talked to a few people this week who say, no, it's great. No, brilliant. He's come around now. He's got the fixtures and everything. It doesn't matter, does it? Ultimately, this is still sort of a fun game for most people. And he makes it less fun for me.
Yeah.
And I love my other 4 defenders, right? So, well, I say I love them. Gabriel will not leave as soon as he's alive. Hall is now good. Milenkovic is just the best lock pick in the game, and I like it that everyone's come crawling back and suddenly recognizing his threat. So I'm a bit feisty this week, aren't I? I should be kinder. Sorry, but basically I got some points and now I'm good. No, only joking. But yeah, no, on a serious note, it's very difficult moving forward because the defense looks fine, but there are nice players that you want, right? So Munoz and Robinson are 2 good examples, but very hard to justify getting them in at this point. I think I eventually will move Lewis for either a 4.0 or a Munoz, but the problem is I'd planned for Eze. So we did it the other way around. I'd planned to get Eze in for one of my cheap midfielders because by that point I would have engineered the money. And now I need to plan for a reality where I rotate Enzo and Rogers or another cheap mid, and then I have to decide what I want to do with that Lewis spot. So I don't know, but it just feels like a week to sit on my hands and think about it a bit more, because I think other than, I mean, selling Lewis is never going to punish me because just dreadful, but I'm still better off. The only problem is you're better at me on this score for sure, is the value thing. I think I've been sort of bleeding money for a little while now. You know, a couple of weeks of losing 0.1 on Rodgers, losing 0.1 or 2 on Lewis, missing Robinson, you know,
selling
so
away.
Yeah, and that as well. I mean, that decision, only time will tell, right? I didn't enjoy it in the slightest, but at least getting Enzo was probably the right decision for the cheap mids for now, anyway. But yeah, it looks good. I'm happy enough. Yeah, I'll take the slides off at this point, I think. Good. So we got some questions. If you want to finish up with those, it looks like we're on for a reasonable time.
We're getting there.
Time clock. Maybe something like 1:40. That's progress, right? We're a bit shorter. We don't want to go all sort of Martin Scorsese film on you or anything like that. We're trying to get it down to a sort of 80s knockabout comedy, 90 minutes. You know, sort of think Steve Martin when he was good, that type of thing. Yeah. So a couple of questions. Oh yeah, our friend actually, who I recommend following on Blue Sky, that dude Morpheus. The man is absolute hilarity, and he makes me laugh. So he says, I don't know whether the question is all in one, but Bruno and Ahmad in, Cunha and Saka out. That can't be one move, right? But just in principle, do you like the idea of bringing those players in and getting rid of the other two? So Bruno and Ahmad in, Cunha and Saka out.
No, keep Saka and
nice straight one for you.
Saka and Cunha, yeah, especially this week, because Cunha, you won't want to do it anyway, because Cunha's not going. I don't think Cunha's going to get banned, is he? So sit on your hands. Both got good fixtures.
I mean, I don't know why. I'm not really sure in what situation one would justify Saka out at the moment.
No,
I know he's blanked a fair few times, but like, what do you need? That, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested. Please do let us know, that dude Morpheus. But yeah, I think hold fire on Saka if you can. But yeah, I would probably sit on your hands this week, which in your case, being a man of slightly lewd persuasion, might lead to some quite interesting imagery. But he also says thoughts on triple Arsenal defence. Yeah, I think the difficulty there is I'm a little bit less keen nowadays on Raya, and he's just sat there and it's fine. But if I was picking from scratch, I probably wouldn't go there now. I'd probably double up on the centre backs and still have Saka. So that's my answer. Danny?
Yeah, I wouldn't now, because obviously triple Arsenal defence is great, but we've talked about a lot of very good picks, and Robinson and Hall and Munoz. Potentially you might want Arteta, soon. But I think it's shifted a bit now from their fixtures in terms of them being good defensive fixtures previously, and now Raya's ceiling is 6 points. So that's Raya's where it could get interesting. But if you look at it now, they've got Palace away, then they've got Ipswich, but then they've got Brentford away, Brighton away, Spurs, Villa. They're not, I mean, even for the best defence in the league, they're not great clean sheet fixtures. I wouldn't want to be going into those sort of fixtures with triple defence.
No, and actually, strangely enough, you reeling off the fixtures there makes me feel slightly better about Raya in a sense, because you do feel like there might be the odd.
Yeah, if he cleans in one of those games, it's more likely to be more than 6, isn't it? Yeah.
So there is that. Maybe, I don't know. It feels like the kind of move we talked about this a few weeks ago. But if we had 4 or 5 moves, I might be tempted to change that around. But as it is, probably won't be anything that I'll do. Our friends Frenchie, Jackson or Trent, the bigger priority? I think that's quite an interesting question, actually. I think where I stand on that one, I don't know. I feel more immediately comfortable about Jackson within an existing structure. Trent's one of those funny ones that Danny and I have kept for a long time now. Whether I would sort of bake it in at this point, I don't know. Actually, he's looking good, but there are times where it is quite frustrating to watch, isn't it? Because he's holding back, he's conserving energy in the odd game. Obviously, last night 45 minutes, but I think it was because it was 2-0. They were winning, so I'm guessing that was just taking the opportunity to give him a rest. I wouldn't put anyone off of either, but I'd probably be slightly more worried in the immediate term about Jackson. But I'm very happy keeping Trent. It's a really fence-sitting, boring answer from me. But you come here to pay the big bucks for people like Danny. So, Danny?
I'd prioritise Trent just because it's more difficult to get to, and there are lots of good strikers to choose from. And don't forget as well, we've got a very I know it's a while away, and as I said before, I don't usually think this far ahead, but especially with a player like Trent, that's quite hard to manoeuvre in or out. They've got a double game week, haven't they, in 24? So that's a very likely double game week. So that's only 8 weeks away. If you kind of can make that decision now, if you go the other way, you're actually just giving yourself potentially quite a large headache in a few weeks, because you're going to want Trent. You're not going to be wanting to try and get someone like Gomez because you can't afford it just to get through the game week and stuff like that. And then they've got Leicester at home in 18. Then they've got the easiest fixture of the season in 19. Away at West Ham, and Forest, Ipswich at home. It's been frustrating for Trent. It's a bit funny one with us, isn't it? Because I think we're being a bit kind of reticent. We've kind of been a bit like, we've been frustrated. It's not really got the points that we wanted, but we are very happy to own. I think if we didn't own him, knowing the type of managers that we are, that you are, I would certainly be thinking for age every week. I'd be thinking, when can I get Trent in? Knowing me, so but I would have him anyway for that reason. So, and obviously Jackson's still on 4 yellows, isn't he? So he's still got 3 weeks to get through. So it's a little bit more precarious as well when you're bringing a guy in and you could just get one booking and miss a couple of those, one of the prime fixtures. Plus they're going to have some where they're playing 3 times in a week, and still think he could miss a game.
Yeah. I think that's persuasive. You've talked me around off the precipice a little bit there. It's the classic thing of when you own someone. I'm just frustrated because it's that thing where you see owners are going to probably pile on actually next week, right? Something like that. I don't know. And we'll have sat on him for all of this time, not moved him around for 8 Nori, which is obviously a pretty silly thing to do. Well, it's easy saying that now. And they'll get the haul when we probably should have had something a bit more. Sorry for being bitter. Anyway, Pep, our good friend who's been on before, João Pedro versus Strand Larsen. Who's the biggest waste of space?
Oh God. Well, we've said Pep's getting a bit itchy, isn't he? He's getting a bit itchy fingers, a bit twitchy, and Pedro, you want to wait and see. You don't really, don't be too keen to get rid of these guys. I don't know, it depends who you're getting instead. But this week, you don't get rid of Strand Larsen. Again, Leicester is just a fixture. Even I can't remember if it was the last game or the game before, but he had a couple of really good chances last, and he could have easily got 1 or 2 returns in a week where he blanked. I think it was the week before last. I think people, it's less easy for people to have faith with these type of guys who've actually only been a player in our forts for the last 10 weeks and never before that ever. So we're sort of like, he's new to us. We've not got these firm opinions. So we're more happy to just kind of palm them off and just think that they're rubbish straight away. So I just think leave him for the fixture.
I'm not really sure who you would be so keen to jump off these players for this week anyway. I mean, he genuinely, even Isak, I know he's terrific, and but I don't know whether let's say I had the money or a way of getting João Pedro to Isak this week. I don't know. Even that doesn't feel terribly important. I wouldn't, again, if it's got nothing else to do and you've got the money in the bank, I suppose that's fine. But otherwise, I think both those moves can wait. But to answer you the question, who's a bigger waste of space? I think it's probably Strand Larsen in the long run, just simply because it's not you're not going anywhere with that spot. There's João Pedro is. I don't know. I wouldn't be completely against the idea of him as my 8th attacker. There is a scenario in which that might happen. Probably won't be. And to come back to your question about Jackson, and this is another point as well, is that whatever one thinks about João Pedro and so on, you can still get 3 reasonably priced strikers who will take penalties, and I think that's a pretty solid, if somewhat unspectacular, argument at the moment as well. He also said about Haaland, can you ever see yourself going back there? Probably just keep that to a no right now. But personally, this is one of the reasons why Isak is quite useful in case there's a bunch of injuries and things change. But can I see myself? No, I can't. No, Danny?
No.
Yep. We'll move on. Fraser, this is a really interesting question. Teams look settled. Where do we spend our transfers? And then he's also got a question about strikers. So, I mean, you as someone with no transfers probably have a different answer on this one, but he says teams look settled. Where do we spend our transfers? I don't think there are quite a few little opportunities, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I'd have to see his team because we're all pretty different. I could probably get it up here, to be fair. But I mean, the answer usually to that question is, if someone's saying where can we spend our transfers, and the answer is don't spend your transfers.
Rack them up.
Rack them up. Just looking at Fraser's team from last week, he's got Robinson already. He's got Bumo, Saka, Salah, Palmer, Isak, Pedro, Wissa. So I guess he's just asking the question more generally, but save, just save. Things will change. Things go wrong. We need these transfers for chips. I wish I had 2 or 3 now that I could still roll, just to get more.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how many transfers you have. There will always be a Rico Lewis to sell. Even if you have to buy him in and sell him again,
or an Eze.
Yeah, or Eze indeed. But Fraser, I suppose for you, you probably want another reason you want to roll is to see how you feel about Brentford in a couple of weeks as well. So final question for him. He asks best strikers for expected minutes over the holiday period.
It's probably pretty interesting, important one because none of them are great. I mean, Isak's minutes are probably the best. You tell me if I miss anyone here, but Wood would be right up there, but he can get the early benching, but he's absolutely guaranteed to start and guaranteed to get good enough minutes. Jimenez is dodgy. Jackson's are not great. I don't think that's talked about enough, especially now. I think they could be about to get worse, but he's obviously got 4 yellows and playing a bit more often, but they're still fine. He's obviously first choice. So I wouldn't put him into a great minutes category, nor Jimenez. Pedro has got very good minutes. Unfortunately, he's just not doing much, but he just seems to play him and play him and play him. So that's quite an important thing to think about, actually, when you're thinking about Pedro. Who else we missed there? Anyone else? No?
I was tempted to throw in a joke and say, well, actually, Haaland's minutes are pretty decent over the holiday period as well. So if you really wanted to, you've got that. But no, I think you've covered it. I mean, actually, there's quite a few teams with some no-go areas, really. I'm thinking of my own team. Not that anyone's going to back West Ham, but Fulkrug made an appearance the other day, Danny. I'm sure you got quite excited about that. He's managed to put down the keg of beer for a minute and come back for a fleeting weekend. Apparently, he might leave in January. By the way, it's already a free.
He probably just wanted another red card or something.
Yeah, exactly. There's still a lot of noises about unrest in the West Ham camp and arguments with money. I'm going to be a bit kinder because I know that Lopetegui's father's just passed away, so you'll commiserate. Obviously bad for him, and that's a shame. But yeah, it's still funny one. That one, they looked a little bit better, but I don't think anyone's going to be interested in investing there as well. Okay. I think that's probably it. But yeah, the expected minutes. I don't know. I'm going to be boring, and I think Wood is the one that I just like for everything, really.
Yeah, I mean they're also bad for
Isak,
minutes.
obviously, lack of competition for him, that makes him quite a solid pick as well.
Yeah, Isak's the standout. I mean, Watkins is no good for minutes anymore. Jackson, we've said. Solanke's very good for minutes. Okay, so it's quite an important discussion really because it's so important minutes. Solanke's right up there. So obviously can't remember what Spurs' fixtures are like, but no, they're okay. You know, that's the benefit of someone like Cunha again going into this weekend. You know, if Cunha's playing, which he probably is, he's also playing 90 minutes. That's huge. And there was just someone else I was going to say quickly. What was it? Oh, guess Wissa's good. Pretty good. Again, it's more like 70 minutes. I can't remember what I was going to say now. I was just going to say Mateta as well. Mateta's another one who... Is Mikey returned to us?
No, I just thought it'd be fun. He'd just come back into the chat noticing that we were still going. But I thought,
right.
We're actually signing off, Mikey, but
yeah,
you can sign off as well. Actually, I'll tell you what, we'll ask you the last question as well from Frazier. And it was the best strikers for expected minutes over the holiday period. Do you have any particular names spring to mind?
The first name was Isak.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
Any alternatives that are any good? I think he was talking about Solanke. Good for minutes. That's about it. You're not really buying Brentford now, are you? So
no, and of course, it's worth, by the way, googling. Is it Thiago? Just to have a look. He looks like an absolute brute. I know Danny knows I get sort of quite excited about sort of scary, muscle-clad strikers who can head in from all angles, that type of thing. So yeah. Okay, well, I better wrap up. That's a good suggestion. And Mikey, if anyone's just joined us, they will think that you've never been away. So this is, it's like a sort of trick film. Good stuff. Hopefully we'll be back next week. I will confirm details of that one to come, but I'll get this uploaded, and I've got just time to thank my compadres here. So, Mikey, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
And Danny, thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, cheers, Rich. Cheers, Mikey. And apologies if my sound was bad the first half an hour, that my mic was the wrong mic. I've got a new mic coming, so that's a great reason to like and subscribe, isn't it?
Oh, hello. So you're in on the...
I thought you'd like that.
I was going to say, it's just, I like it. Well, that's a good way to finish. I'll go off with a hop, skip and a jump full of that excitement for Danny dropping the like and subscribe bomb there as well. Good. Yeah. Thank you very much. And have a good evening all, and hope you have a good game week if you have the same players that we do. Have a good weekend.
See you later.
Bye.